Here's a full 1600-word emotional article, script for your YouTube video based on your title and theme. It's written as a cinematic narrative that flows naturally, without headings, and is designed to hold attention while tugging at the audience's emotions. On a cold winter evening in the heart of the city, the subway station was buzzing with hurried footsteps, train announcements, and the heavy air of people rushing home after long days. Among the crowd stood a man who looked like he didn't belong. His clothes were worn, his shoes had seen better days, and his tired eyes carried the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. His name was Daniel. Daniel was a single father, raising his 6-year-old daughter, Emily, all on his own. Life hadn't been kind to him. After losing his wife to illness and his job to layoffs, he had been doing everything he could just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. But no matter how hard he tried, the world seemed determined to knock him down. Still, one thing never changed: his love for Emily. She was his reason to keep going, his little ray of sunshine in a world that often felt far too dark. That night, Daniel only had $10 left in his pocket. $10 that he had carefully saved to buy a simple dinner for Emily. He knew it wasn't much, maybe just some bread, milk, and eggs, but to Emily, it would mean another night with her dad, another meal together, another reminder that even in their struggles, they had each other. As Daniel waited for the train, he noticed a young woman sitting quietly on one of the benches. She looked completely out of place, dressed in an elegant coat with a silk scarf, but her face was pale, her hands trembled, and her eyes were swollen from crying. Most people hurried past her, too busy with their own lives to notice, but Daniel's heart wouldn't let him ignore her. Something in her expression reminded him of the nights he had sat awake, holding back tears so Emily wouldn't see. Hesitantly, he walked over. "Miss, are you all right?" he asked softly. The woman tried to smile but her lips quivered. I just lost my wallet," she whispered. "And my phone battery died. I can't get home." Daniel could tell she was holding back more than just frustration, there was a deep loneliness in her eyes. Maybe it was pride that stopped her from asking strangers for help. Maybe it was fear, but Daniel understood what it felt like to be stranded, to have nothing, and to feel invisible. Without thinking twice, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his last crumpled bill. $10. His dinner money. Emily's dinner money. He looked at it for a moment, then at the woman, and finally pressed it into her hand. "Here," he said. "It's not much, but it should get you a ticket and maybe something warm to eat." The woman's eyes widened in shock. I can't take this from you. You don't even know me." Daniel smiled faintly. "You look like you need it more than I do. Sometimes a little kindness can make all the difference. Just promise me you'll pay it forward one day." She stared at him, speechless, as tears welled up in her eyes. Before she could say anything else, the train screeched into the station. Daniel gave her a small nod and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. What Daniel didn't know was that the woman he had just helped wasn't an ordinary commuter. Her name was Isabella Hart. To the world, she was the CEO of one of the largest companies in the city, a woman known for her brilliance, power, and wealth. But in that moment, sitting in the subway with mascara running down her face, she wasn't a CEO. She was just a human being, broken by the pressures of her own world, desperately needing someone to see her not as a title, but as a person. And Daniel had done exactly that. That night, Isabella couldn't stop thinking about him. She replayed the moment over and over, the kindness in his voice, the sincerity in his eyes, the way he gave without expecting anything in return. In her world of boardrooms and contracts, people often smiled only when they wanted something. But Daniel gave because his heart told him to. The next morning, Isabella couldn't shake the thought. She called her driver, went back to the station, and tried to find him. But the crowd was endless, and Daniel was just one man among millions. She almost gave up, until fate intervened. A week later, Isabella attended a local community event her company was sponsoring. She was shaking hands, smiling for cameras, and giving her usual polished speech when, at the edge of the crowd, she saw him. Daniel was there with Emily, holding her tiny hand as she clutched a balloon given by one of the volunteers. His clothes were the same, his face still weary, but his smile as he looked at his daughter lit up the entire park. Isabella's heart skipped a beat. She excused herself from the crowd and walked toward him. "Daniel," she asked gently. He turned, surprised. "Do I know you?" She smiled softly. "Subway station. Last week. You gave me your last $10. Daniel's eyes widened in recognition. "That was you." Isabella nodded, tears forming in her eyes again. "I never got to thank you properly." You had nothing, and yet you gave me everything in that moment. No one has shown me that kind of kindness in a very long time. Daniel shifted awkwardly, embarrassed. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same. No, Isabella said firmly. Not everyone would. That's what makes it so extraordinary. She looked down at Emily, who was hugging her balloon tightly and smiling up at her father. In that instant, Isabella made a decision. She wasn't going to let this man's kindness go unnoticed. Over the next few days, Isabella arranged to meet Daniel again. She invited him and Emily to her office, though she didn't reveal her full position right away. She wanted to know them better, to understand their story. As they talked, Daniel opened up about his struggles, how he had been working odd jobs, how he skipped meals to make sure Emily could eat, how every day felt like a fight just to survive. But through it all, his love for his daughter never wavered. Isabella was deeply moved. She realized that while she had money, influence, and every luxury imaginable, Daniel had something she longed for: genuine love, humility, and the kind of strength that can only be forged through hardship. Finally, one afternoon, she revealed the truth. Daniel, she said quietly, I'm not just someone you met at the subway. I'm Isabella Hart, CEO of Hart Enterprises. Daniel blinked, stunned. You're, what? She smiled, almost shyly. I know it sounds unreal, but it's true. And ever since you gave me that $10, I haven't been able to forget it. You reminded me of what really matters: kindness, humanity, love. Things money can't buy. Daniel was speechless. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. To him, Isabella had been just a stranger in need. He never imagined she was one of the most powerful women in the city. But Isabella wasn't done. I want to help you, Daniel, she said. Not because I pity you, but because you've given me something priceless, a reminder of who I want to be. Let me do this for you and Emily. At first, Daniel resisted. His pride told him to refuse, to stand on his own 2 feet. But when he looked at Emily, whose big brown eyes were filled with hope, he realized this wasn't just about him. It was about giving his daughter the life she deserved. With Isabella's help, Daniel found stable work at her company, not as charity, but because she saw his intelligence, determination, and integrity. Over time, he proved himself invaluable, rising through the ranks with hard work and dedication. Emily thrived too, with better schooling, a safe home, and a future brighter than Daniel had ever dared to dream. And through it all, Daniel and Isabella grew closer. What began as an act of kindness at a subway station blossomed into a friendship, and eventually, into something deeper, a love built not on wealth or status, but on trust, respect, and the kind of compassion that changes lives. Years later, people would often ask Isabella why she, a powerful CEO, had chosen to open her heart to a man who once had nothing. And she would smile and say, because when I was lost, he gave me his last $10. Not knowing who I was, not expecting anything in return. That's the kind of man you build a life with. That's the kind of man who makes you believe in the goodness of humanity. And Daniel, he never forgot that moment either. To him, it wasn't about the money. It was about the reminder that even when you have nothing, you can still give kindness. And sometimes, that kindness comes back to you in ways you could never imagine. In the end, one single act of selflessness in a crowded subway station changed the course of 2 lives forever. A struggling single dad and a lonely CEO millionaire found hope, love, and a future together, all because he chose compassion over fear, generosity over survival. And that is the power of kindness. This comes to about 1,600 words worth of narrative when paced for YouTube delivery, roughly 18 to 20 minutes of spoken content. Do you want me to expand it further into a full 50-minute script, about 6,500–7,000 words, like you mentioned before for your long YouTube projects, or keep this as a mid-length story?